Where does your favorite team's starting quarterback rank entering 2024? What's going on, football fans? It's Mitch here, back with another NFL reaction video. And in this video, I react to the Athletics quarterback tiers entering 2024, an annual list that is put together and voted on by NFL coaches and NFL executives, an exclusive list that I always find pretty fascinating. If you want to know what the NFL actually thinks of your favorite team's quarterback, this list will tell you all about it. So let's react. But before I do, Gronk, spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more NFL reactions just like this. Let's have some fun and let's discuss. Hop in the comments and let me know your opinion on the Athletics quarterback tiers. What's right, what's wrong, and what's okay? Let me know in the comments. Let's get to it, guys. Let's react to the Athletics quarterback tiers for 2024. So we have Patrick Mahomes in the middle, Aaron Rodgers on the right, Jordan Love on the left. I like Rodgers and Love in that little graphic. That's very nice. Okay. NFL quarterback tiers 2024, only two join Mahomes in tier 1. Rodgers, Herbert drop out. It is created and written by Mike Sando. This was released on August 26th, so 2 days ago. Let's get to it. So we have risers, fallers from the 2023 QB tiers. Ooh, that's interesting. So we have Brock Purdy as the biggest riser, plus 13 spots. Jordan Love tied as the biggest riser, plus 13 spots. I remember reacting to this list last year, and I remember Brock Purdy being way too low. And I remember saying Brock Purdy is way too low. I was probably also higher on Jordan Love than a lot of other people because I was. If you recall the video I made, I love Jordan Love. Yes. So I think I was higher on both those guys. Feel proud about that. Baker Mayfield was not exactly one I foresaw in terms of a big jump in production, but +8, that makes sense to me. Matthew Stafford +6 doesn't really make a ton of sense. I mean, he was injured, I guess, in 2022 and played really well in 2023, but he's Matthew Stafford. You wouldn't have thought that he would have moved all that much, but who knows? Jared Goff +6. Okay, I could see that. Lamar Jackson +4. I could also see that. Tua +3. That's fair. Dak +1. Geno +1. Justin Fields only -2. That's interesting. Aaron Rodgers -3. That's also a little low in terms of the minus, in my opinion. You would have thought maybe a little bit more. Kyler Murray -3. Okay. Jalen Hurts -4. That feels right. Derek Carr -5. Russell Wilson -5. Deshaun Watson -6. I don't know why he was 6 spots higher last year. And Trevor Lawrence -7, the biggest faller. So out of the guys I would say that fell, I think Hurts is going to go back up this year. You guys can quote me on this. And I think Trevor Lawrence is going to go back up. I think Kyler will also maybe go back up. Rodgers, I think, will be about the same. Dak will probably fall a little bit. I think Geno will rise slightly. It's interesting that he actually went up. I don't know why, based on last year. I think that Love and Purdy will probably stay about the same. Maybe Love will go a little bit up. Mayfield probably go down a little bit. And the rest feel about right. So let's get to it. Let's begin with tier 1. A tier 1 quarterback can carry his team each week. The team wins because of him. He expertly handles pure passing situations. He has no real holes in his game. And I love what they do here in terms of explaining each tier. So Patrick Mahomes is number 1. And they look at the tiers over time, the annual votes by tier. So he was 50, all 50 votes as the best quarterback in the NFL. That's not too egregious. That makes perfect sense. I'm not here to argue against Patrick Mahomes as the best quarterback in the league. All I've said before is that he really didn't have his best season until the playoffs. That's all I would really argue, right? But when it's all said and done and we look back at careers, it's all about the playoffs. That's all anyone ever cares about. That's all any athlete plays for, is the playoffs, is championships. So for me, Totally agree. Is there any quotes in here? Is there a 0 category above tier 1? A defensive coordinator asked. What is there more to say about Mahomes? Last year, there was so much adversity with the drops. Kadarius Toney. Interesting. I know people who were talking Philly or San Francisco in the Super Bowl. A defensive coordinator said, dude, they are playing Mahomes. You take Mahomes. He's like Brady. When Brady was in his prime, you can't bet against that dude because he's the best in the business. The only player to win big with a bad defense. What? Huh? His defense was fantastic. The 22 Chiefs won the Super Bowl while ranking 29th in combined defense and EPA. Although I will say I thought the Chiefs defense was actually pretty good in 2022, but definitely not the case in 2023. I don't really know what the case was there, but Joe Burrow, number 2, interesting. So above Josh Allen. So, and he actually has, okay, so it's voted by tier. I shouldn't say that Mahomes got 50 number 1 votes. I don't know if he did or not, but he did have 50 tier 1 votes. Now, Burrow also had 43 tier 1 votes, which is pretty darn good, and 7 tier 2 votes. That's really strong considering he was hurt last year. The 43 tier 1 votes for Burrow are 6 fewer than he received last year after his latest injury. That's still pretty impressive in my opinion. So people are not giving up on Joe Burrow. They still feel like he is absolutely elite and will be that for years to come. You love everything about him, but at some point physically his body is going to fall and fail, I should say. A defensive coach who has faced Burrow multiple times. Burrow's confidence is one of his most endearing qualities. He's a cool, calm, collected, and confident version of Kirk Cousins. That's interesting. He might have a little bit. Everybody is a version of Kirk Cousins. We've learned this over the years. Every quarterback is a version of Kirk Cousins. We have learned that. He might have a little better arm strength, but the skill set is similar. I don't necessarily disagree. I think Burrow is better in terms of his vision, creativity. I think that's what, maybe that has to do with confidence, but yes, Cousins is very accurate. Cousins is on time. Cousins reads the field well. Cousins operates an offense well. I think where Burrow is super underrated is he is elusive outside the pocket. He's able to like extend plays at a high level. He's got really good touch on his football. He's extremely accurate. But I think what he does in the pocket and out of the pocket, and then his creativity and vision is what sets him apart from traditional passers like Kirk Cousins. That's my opinion on that. And a guy like Tua, let's say. So yeah, Joe Burrow, I definitely agree he's tier 1. I wouldn't have him second, but that's just me. He is definitely a 1, a head coach said. He is an accurate touch passer with anticipation. That's basically what I just said. But they got to be careful. He's getting hurt on his throwing arm. You have injuries to your legs like he's had. That will affect your arm. I'm curious to see how the ball comes out of his hand this year. I think Burrow's going to be fantastic this year. I've made the statement. I think this will be his best season of his NFL career. Number 3 is Josh Allen. Fair enough. And I think he's the last tier 1 guy. 39 tier 1 votes. 10 tier 2 votes, and the hater with 1 tier 3 vote. Allen, like Burrow, landed in tier 1 for a 3rd consecutive year. He commanded 5 fewer tier 1 votes this year compared to last. Interesting, but remains solidly with the top group. For me, Mahomes and Josh Allen are the 2 guys right now that people are the most afraid to play. I think you would agree with that. I think most people would agree with that. They do not go in and say they are afraid to play Joe Burrow. Maybe that is just from a playmaking standpoint. I think Joe is great, but these 2, Mahomes and Allen, put teams on their backs and win. I would agree with that. I do think that Burrow, again, is underrated as a creative player, though. The cost of Allen's playmaking, 22 turnovers last year, was second most in the NFL, which explains the 11 voters that didn't place him in tier 1. I think this is the most overrated stat that people use to discount Josh Allen. Like, the turnovers, I understand, but guys, like, it's all anyone ever talks about with Josh Allen for a negative. Is there anything else we want to bring up? The reason I put him at 2, I'm wondering if people have caught up to him a little bit. An offensive coach said, if he can't extend the down, it is hard for him to stay on schedule and protect the ball. When you see guys throwing bad interceptions, why did they go there with the ball? Is it because they're not understanding what's in front of them? I disagree. I think Allen most of the time sees what's in front of him. I just don't think his team is that good. I don't think his scheme is that good. I don't think his receivers are that good. I think that's why he extends plays so much. I think we've seen him go through progressions and make reads and quick decisions, but a lot of it has been dependent on the offensive play caller, the players around him. That's just me. But you may disagree. I think nobody's brought up his legs yet, which I think is interesting. He can pass to win it, and he can just say, screw it, I'm going to scramble today because my passing sucks and still win it, another voter said. That's what I love about Allen, too. He's sort of reckless, but it's like to win the game. Like, he clearly his passion comes out when you watch him play. It's very clear, and I think that's right. Like, he can definitely just run and win a game at times. If he does not turn the ball over, he's going to make plenty of plays to win games. Another head coach said, I think he is a top 3 or 4 guy in the league. Okay, so tier 2. So those are the tier 1 quarterbacks: Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. I would flip Burrow and Allen strictly based on, even if it's just health alone, I would flip it on that. I also think Allen has less around him majority of the time. I would also say that Allen is better physically speaking. And I don't have the questions about injuries with him as much. So I would flip those two, but otherwise I love Burrow. I think those are the top 3 for sure. It is interesting that Lamar is not in tier 1. And I think because of the description of tier 1, when you read tier 1, right? So tier 1, again, is a quarterback that can carry his team. The team wins because of him. But this is the key, right? So tier 1, carry his team wins because of him. I think Lamar does that. If we're breaking it down sentence by sentence, I think Lamar does that. A tier 1 quarterback can carry his team and win because of him. Now, the area that he is not tier 1, he expertly handles pure passing situations. He has no real holes in his game. I do think Lamar is a lesser passer than Mahomes, Burrow, and Allen. And if that is the most important ingredient to ranking your quarterbacks in this list, in this tiers, I do think Mahomes and Burrow should be first and second, by the way, because I think Allen is not as good of a pure passer as Burrow, but I think he's a better playmaker. So then in tier 2, we have a tier 2 quarterback can carry his team sometimes, but not as consistently. He can handle pure passing situations in doses and or possesses other dimensions that are special enough to elevate him above tier 3. Fair. I also love this description. He has a hole or 2 in his game. Okay, so Lamar is 4. Stafford is 5, tied with Justin Herbert. Aaron Rodgers is 7th. CJ Stroud is 8th. We've got a lot of quarterbacks here. Dak Prescott is 9th. Jared Goff is 10th. Jalen Hurts is 11th. Brock Purdy is 12th. Kirk Cousins is 13th. Are these all tier 2s? Really? And Jordan Love is 14th. Wow, that's a lot of tier 2 quarterbacks. So we're going to get to that. So we got Lamar Jackson at number 4. In the same tier with old man Aaron Rodgers, Jared Goff, Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts, Kirk Cousins, and Jordan Love. The MVP is in that same tier. That's interesting. I don't believe that. I would almost have Lamar in his own tier. Like, I personally believe right now going into 2024, it's probably Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, then Lamar, then Stroud, Stafford, Herbert. That's probably for me what the you maybe even, you know what, like Dak's like right after with Jordan Love, Purdy, depending on Rodgers and Cousins' health. Like I could see them in there as well. So that's the way I would kind of tier it. But it's interesting on Lamar because he's very divisive. So 23 tier 1 votes, that's a lot. 26 tier 2 votes and 1 tier 3 vote, which I don't understand that. But Jackson surged to the brink of tier 1 with more top tier votes this year than he commanded over the previous 3 combined. So a lot of people bought into Lamar this season compared to last couple. Okay. He's a fantastic dual threat guy. He's explosive. He's dangerous. An offensive coach said this past year with Todd Monken, I thought he took a big step and became a passer to me. It was different from the previous years. I do agree to a point. I do feel he's always been a better passer since he came out of college. When I reviewed his tape, I said he was a better passer than people think. And I've stated that year after year after year after year after year. Now, is that still not as dynamic as his rushing? Yes. Yes. But his quick release, his ability to throw from a multitude of angles, his ability to win from inside or outside the pocket, he is a good passer. He's not Burrow, but he's also the most dynamic scrambler in the league. So I think he's closer to tier 1 than tier 2. I just think putting an MVP of this league in tier 2 is being on some quarterback high horse of what we think it's supposed to look like. A voter who placed Jackson in tier 1. Yeah, because like I said, like the first like half of the explanation of tier 1 is that he needs to carry his team. Like there's no doubt Lamar carries his team. You look at what he's had at receiver, you look at the injuries he had at tight end last year, you look at the running back injuries, like there's no doubt Lamar carries his offense, right? He's always had great defenses, so you could say that about him, but like on his side of the ball, he is the scheme, he is the offense, he is the guy. He's a one with limitations. I do sort of agree with that. You can win a lot of games with him. When you watched it against Kansas City, he can't pass when he has to. That is still true, but he is still a wonderful football player. See, that kind of feels a bit harsh. Like, was it he couldn't pass when he needed to, or was it that his receivers were overwhelmed by the secondary of the Chiefs? See, I think there's some... I wish he didn't make the turnover. Like, I wish he didn't turn it over the way he did in that game and force it the way he did in that game. And I wish he was a little bit more patient in the pocket instead of, always trying to look to make some dynamic play. There are certain things that I feel like he needs to be better at. But man, like at the same time, it's hard to just say that about one game alone. I do think he got better last year. Matthew Stafford at number 5, I think's fine. I think that's fair. A tier 1, 21 votes. Tier 2, 26 votes. Tier 3, 3 votes. I don't know why Stafford would be in tier 3 either. 1.64 average and number 5 ranking are both personal bests in 11 years of tiers voting for Matthew Stafford. That's interesting. When people put their top 10 quarterbacks together, he's always 8 or 9, and he is better than anyone thinks. A voter placing Stafford in tier 1. So consistent, so strong, reads defenses so well. He can do anything with his arm talent. He's the reason the team is good. I agree with that. Last year especially, he didn't have a very good team. Voters lauded Stafford's ability to handle pure passing situations. I do not want him with the ball late. I agree. He is definitely a better pure passer than Lamar. There's no question about that. Now, where I think Stafford is limited is he also kind of has injury concerns. But on top of that, he doesn't move very well, and he doesn't extend outside the pocket very well anymore. But in the pocket, he's a demon. Like, he can do it all. Like, he's probably better than, it might be crazy to say, he's probably better than, like, Mahomes in the pocket. That might be crazy. I don't know, but because Mahomes does so much creating in his game as well. But Stafford's in a very elite tier when it comes to pure passing. He's always been a great player. A head coach said, but to unlock the Super Bowl, Matthew Stafford getting him with Sean McVay and putting him in a structure where they had a run game and they had a defense was critical. Yeah, I do think that's the only thing that I think will follow Stafford to the end of his career is like he couldn't really do it without McVay and that system. But I think that also proved that he was super underrated with the Lions. He just never had good coaching. He never really had a good franchise, a good culture. There was a lot of things missing for him. Now, also Justin Herbert's tied for 5th, which I could see it. Stafford and Herbert are very similar players. Herbert is basically a younger version. He's probably the bigger, stronger, youthful version of Stafford. Stafford, I think, is more nuanced in the way that he throws the football from his angle and his delivery. I think he's also more deadly in clutch situations. So I'd slightly put Stafford over Herbert, as well as just the winning factor. But I think Herbert is definitely in the top 7 for sure for me. So tied for 5th is not crazy. Herbert fell from tier 1, but remained the 5th ranked quarterback for a 3rd consecutive year. His 30-32 career record with no playoff wins seems to be working against him. That's totally fair, though. 19 tier 1 votes, still a lot of tier 1 votes. Tier 2, 30. Tier 3, 1. Again, wouldn't have Herbert anywhere but tier 2. Like, who's this guy voting in tier 3? Herbert might have the Matthew Stafford career where they finally play defense and run the ball and have more success. He's super, super, super talented. I don't even know if that is the right thing to put him in an offense where they run the ball as much as they should run it or about to run it because he's so talented. I don't think it is. I just think it's having a defense. Having a defense and having a pass-oriented offense, that's just a little bit more nuanced. I think that's the way that Herbert should be playing because he is one of the best pure passers, one of the best readers of the field, one of the most accurate, most consistent throwers of the football. There's no reason he should be running the ball a lot on this offense. I don't really see that actually helping him, honestly. The gap between Herbert's obvious talent and his on-field success is easily explained. Over the past 3 years, the Chargers ranked 10th in offensive EPA, and the part Herbert affects while ranking 31st in combined EPA on defense and special teams. Okay, I would put him below Rodgers, Stafford, and Mahomes as far as quarterbacks I've seen who can do anything and everything, not just in a scheme. I think he's a gamer. He can throw. He can run. I just think they've asked him to throw the ball too much. That might be fair, especially with a bad defense. Now, Herbert, I do think's top 6. Rodgers at 7, I think's too high. This is the first one I really disagree with here. Rodgers just old. He's coming off a major injury, and he was not all that good in 2022. So this must be respect. But then we see 2 tier 4 votes, 7 tier 3 votes, which I think is more accurate, 18 tier 2 votes, 23 tier 1 votes, which is insane. He's not a tier 1. There's no way you're putting Aaron Rodgers in the same category as Patrick Mahomes at this point. There's just no way. Rodgers dropped into tier 2 for the first time in 11 tiers appearances. Some thought this was ridiculous. Were the guys that did not put Rodgers in tier 1 from the 29 teams whose offenses would have been better with him instead of their current quarterbacks? Okay. Only Mahomes, Burrow, and Allen command more tier 1 votes than Rodgers. But with 7 votes in tier 3 and 2 in tier 4, Rodgers slipped from the elite ranks. Maybe he falls off. An offensive coach placing Rodgers in tier 1 said, I just know that the last time I saw him play, he can carry it. I'm going off that. You watched 2022 because he didn't carry it. He carried it to 8 wins. Not everyone thought Rodgers was playing so well when he finished in Green Bay. I agree. You go back and watch those first 4 plays before he got hurt. He did not look good, a head coach placing Rodgers in tier 3. He looks old. If they can't protect him and they can't run the football, it'll just be what you saw late in the stages of Green Bay. He became ineffective. I'm looking at what he is, not who he is. Shouldn't it be who he was? Anyways, a voter whose team practiced against the Jets last summer said he thought Rodgers appeared fragile. I actually think he looks better now than he did last year. I don't know if that's crazy. The complaint in Green Bay was he did not have the receiver help he needed as he got older. You cannot say that now with what they have around him on the Jets. If we get a Rodgers year where the Jets are back in the playoffs and winning playoff games, that's just what happens when you have a tier 1 quarterback. I would say that on that roster, a tier 2 quarterback could get to the playoffs. Now, if he's winning 12, 13 games, he's tier 1 again, right? That's kind of the difference for me. CJ Stroud at 8, I think is too low. I would have him in my top 5 already, but I understand people's reluctancy to put a rookie that high. Now, 12 tier 1 votes, too low. 35 tier 2 votes. I don't know who's ranking tier 3. They're on drugs. Stroud surpassed Herbert, who was number 10 in 2021 for the highest tier debut coming off a rookie season. Okay, fair enough. This guy is a freaking baller, an offensive assistant said. When we watch the style of play, there's a lot of Joe Burrow, I agree. When Joe is healthy, the dude has balls. Stroud's 1.82 average vote was the same as Tom Brady's coming off of what became Brady's final season. Okay. I think he's special. A head coach said of Stroud. He can make plays on rhythm. He can read coverage. He can get through progressions. He can manipulate coverages. He can create off schedule a lot better. Very cool. Okay. I agree. I'm sure some people gave him a 1, but he's got to prove it. See, that's probably where all the voters came in. Like, he's got to prove it. He's not that good because he's young. Blah, blah, blah. He needs to prove he can do it in a big game against a really, really good defense. Didn't he do it against the best defense in the NFL last year in wildcard round? In a big game, wildcard round? I knew it right away, one voter said. I was watching him play at Baltimore in his first ever game. In the first 15 plays, I was like, okay, they got a quarterback. I saw him flicking his wrist, moving in the pocket. You could see it. Yeah, Stroud's a stud. I think he deserves to be in the top 8, but I think he should be higher. Dak Prescott at 9 feels pretty darn accurate. And also the voting here. 4 tier 1s, I think that's a little bit too happy. I think he's a tier 2 quarterback. 37 is accurate. Now, 9 and tier 3 might be a little bit, low on him. Prescott matched his career best for average vote and ranking while making a 5th consecutive appearance in tier 2. He's a tier 2 quarterback. That's what he is. This is the Dak Prescott tier, baby. Dak can roll out of bed and throw for 450, an offensive play caller said. It's unbelievable. It's just those moments in the playoffs against the Niners or Packers where if you want to be tier 1, one of these times you're going to have to put that team on your back and will your team to win. This sounded like a quote from me. Yeah, Dak has tier 1 moments. He has tier 1 games, but he never seems to have a tier 1 moment or a tier 1 game in the biggest game, which is the annoying part about Dak Prescott. Prescott's 5 career games with 450 are tied with Breeze, behind Roethlisberger, Marino, Brady, and Manning. I have always given Dak a 2, a defensive coordinator said. When I did it this year, I gave him a 3. He proves year in and year out that he cannot get it done in the postseason. That's crazy because I felt like Dak had the best season of his career. I know that he sucked in the playoff game, sort of, but tier 3 after the best season of his career, he was second in MVP votes. Dak is probably a definition of a 2. I agree. Okay, let's move to Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff is like a really low-end tier 2 quarterback or a really high-end tier 3 quarterback. So that's pretty much exactly what is voted on here. Now, he does have tier 1 votes, which might be the first time of his career. But he has 36 tier 2 votes. He has 12 tier 3 votes. It's been a long road back for Goff, who reached tier 2 for the first time since 2019. I actually think that's very fair. This is by far his best season since 2018. So I agree with that in terms of statistics. But I felt like the last 2 years has been the best version of Goff that we've ever seen. I think specifically in 2023 was the most confident and deliberate and consistent Jared Goff that we've seen. Because even in years past, like we saw so much inconsistency from him, depending on where he was playing, the outdoors, indoors, defense he was playing. It is set up so that it's right in front of him and he doesn't have to make a lot of decisions on the field. Another defensive coordinator said they've got a good run game. They have a bunch of checkdowns to the tight end. They've got good players around him. He just has to go 1 to 2 to 3 and fire the ball. But he's another guy who, if it came down to a 2-minute drive, I wouldn't feel great about having him in that situation. Interesting. He's got an offense he can run and he's getting rid of the ball. I don't think he ever wins the big one, but he played well enough last year to go from a 3 to a 2. I agree. He has to have the weapons around him. He can't do it by himself. I do agree with that as well, which is why I'd put him in tier 2. But I think he's a very good tier, like a guy that can make a good system really good, if that makes sense. Like his power on the football, driving the ball in the middle of the field, his processing, his ability to read coverages, his ability to get it out quick. He is stagnant in the pocket, but he's tough in the pocket. I think there's things you like. One defensive coach pointed to Goff and Tua as top 5 picks who have produced at a near elite and borderline replacement level at various points. Goff is somewhere between tier 2 and 3. I kind of agree with that. He has been really good, but I think he has a great system and good personnel. I'm not sure he carries the team. He's a traditional pocket guy, needs protection. I agree. But he makes all the throws. I agree. He lacks mobility. I agree. But I'm not sure he can carry the team exclusively. This is pretty much my exact Jared Goff explanation. Jalen Hurts. Hurts is interesting because I think as a physical talent, he's far beyond Jared Goff. But I think his overall play last year was very disappointing. And I think when you look at his career, he's been mostly disappointing outside of 2022. And just not disappointing because he wasn't drafted as a first-round pick. That's the wrong way to put it. But I was high on Hurts coming out. I actually really thought the pick for the Eagles was pretty good. But Jalen Hurts, he just feels like a guy that kind of underwhelmed last year compared to 2022 and has some real limitations, but also some real strengths. So he's kind of interesting. I think that's what makes him a tier 2 quarterback, but he's definitely not tier 1. He has too many flaws to be tier 1. Tier 3, 16 votes is pretty crazy. That's a lot. He has 33 tier 2 votes. Hurts slipped 5 spots after failing to sustain the momentum from his Super Bowl. Hurts played so well the previous year. I'm giving him a mulligan with some of the things they had going on offensively. I kind of agree. I don't think he was bad necessarily. I also agree. Some voters think Hurts will struggle to recapture the success he enjoyed with Shane Steichen. One half jokingly said a tier 3 lock without the tush push. Oh, tush push, bro. He's saying the tush push is why Jalen Hurts is good. If they can't run the ball, Hurts is not effective. A defensive coordinator said he can't handle pure pass. I do think he's weaker in pure pass than most tier 2 quarterbacks. I would say that. When he got hurt and he became immobile and they had to throw, well, he's hurt. Okay. He showed what he was. I think they might have paid a guy that they're going to have a really good team around him to win games. But he's a really good runner. He's a really good athlete. He's got a strong arm. He's a really good leader. There's a lot of things you would pay Jalen Hurts for. Like, there's reasons I like Hurts more than I like, let's say, I think Dak was better last year, but long-term, I'd rather have Hurts just because I think he has intangibles. We've also seen him show up in big games before, so that's just my opinion. The word is out there. If you run zero blitz against Hurts or show zero and back everybody out, he will panic. That has to change. They lose Jason Kelce, who handled the protections. That's a big deal. Basically did everything, and you bring in a coordinator who likes to drop back. This will be interesting. I agree. It's going to be interesting. I do wonder how that's going to work out. Brock Purdy, just the way that they talked about Jalen Hurts here, I'm actually kind of surprised Purdy doesn't rank ahead of Hurts. And I actually ranked Purdy ahead of Hurts because I think Purdy, the strengths of his game, intelligence, processing, and he is very creative. I think Purdy is better than Hurts, honestly. I think he is. Purdy rose 13 spots from 2023, tying Jordan Love for the biggest jump. He's the best quarterback on the Niners since Colin Kaepernick in 2014. That's also interesting. When they have had the ball to move the ball via drop back pass, that has been the difference between him and Garoppolo. They definitely trust him a lot more in that situation. They actually threw the ball a lot to start games last year. Purdy has done it, and he's done it in moments where he has had to and pull the ball down against Detroit and get a first down with his legs. He has an innate feel. That's a really good description. He definitely has an innate feel. He has proven even when it's not going well, he's a quarter away from clicking in, and you better have a lead when he does. He is kind of clutch too. I do agree with that. The system really helps, but he maximizes it, a defensive coordinator. I'm not saying he's Kurt Warner, but he reminds me of that type of body, not a big arm, not a great arm, but he's accurate. He knows when to get rid of the ball. He's sharp. He's a little bit better athlete than you think. These are really good quotes. I agree with a lot of these things. I honestly could debate calling Brock a 1. An offensive play caller said he is really underrated. Kyle Shanahan deserves a ton of credit, but there still has to be somebody at the switch. Okay, interesting. That's interesting. No tier 1 votes, though. So 34 tier 2, 16 tier 3s. I would slide him to the top of 3. I'm not sold at his universal skill set in varying systems. I would also kind of agree with that. Like, that's probably his looming question, is that can he do this without the gifted skill, talent, and the amazing system? I want to see him in a couple of years eventually. Probably not this year or next year, when he has less around him. And I think that will really give us a great answer about Brock Purdy, but he might get paid before then. Kirk Cousins, number 13, is interesting. I think he was very close to number 13 on my list. The only reason I wouldn't have him, a little higher is just the injury. I do think he's better than Rodgers, though, honestly. Rodgers probably has more appeal, more upside, but Cousins, like most recently, has been a better quarterback. Cousins steadily climbed, continues with a career best 2.38 average. The third consecutive season his average has improved. He has gotten way more courageous in the pocket. I have to give him that. He understands football, can throw the ball on time, can make all the throws. He can carry a team and put them on his back by himself, ? So he's asking, can he carry a team and put the team on his back? I haven't seen that. Maybe he is more like a Purdy type guy. Okay. I think that there's times that he has carried a team, but it's never kind of all come together for him. Like, he's had a good defense. He's had a good O-line. He's had a good receiver. There's always an issue around him, which I guess that is the tier 2 fact. He's kind of like Dak in that way, where he has moments where it feels like he's carrying a team, but it's not consistent enough in the biggest moments, which is why he's definitely not tier 1. But I do think he's pretty competently ranked at tier 2. I think Cousins will not be the quarterback in Atlanta next year. What? Unless Atlanta wins multiple games in the playoffs, the season is a failure for Kirk, unfortunately based on the desire to see Michael Penix. Ooh, okay. That's a take. Purdy has done it with a really good roster, and it's really cool that he has done it. I'm not really going to take credit from that kid, but Kirk has done it with different people. That's true. He has consistently kept his team in it over time. That is where I give him the edge. Cousins does consistently make his team competent. consistently make his team good, but never great, which is the problem. Jordan Love, I think, is too low, but I kind of understand why. But he does have one tier 1 vote. He also has one tier 4 vote. So that's interesting. Love, right? Cousins doesn't have a tier 1 vote. Purdy doesn't have a tier 1 vote. Hurts has 1. Goff has 2. Dak has 4. So interesting. Love's at 14, but he has a tier 1 vote. 25 tier 2, 23 tier 3. And I guarantee you the negative things are going to be he didn't play that well at the beginning of the year. He's got to prove it more. And the positives are going to be about his talent. So let's go through it. Let's see what they say. In 11 years of tiers, only Mahomes, Jackson, Allen, and Trevor Lawrence have made bigger year-over-year gains with a 13-spot jump. Of the guys I think could ascend to 1, this is the guy that comes to mind. I agree. He's got command of the offense. Purdy maybe as well. But anyways, he's got the command of the offense. He can make every throw. He can make plays off script. He can play on script. He gets the ball out on time when everything is right. And he is more athletic than you think. He's got a playmaker mentality. And he started playing with confidence. And everybody can see it. Now, I think the difference between Love and Rodgers last year was Love last season was willing to throw the ball down the field and be a playmaker, and Rodgers in 2022 was way too conservative. I think that was the difference between the Packers winning a playoff game, going 9-8, and Rodgers going 8-9, missing the playoffs. I truly do believe that was a huge difference. He is a 2 going to be a 1. Okay, an offensive play caller said, F, he had a perfect passer rating in the playoff game against Dallas. He can make all the throws. He's composed. Very impressed. Just watching him, man, it's hard to quantify into words, said the lone voter who put him into tier 1. I'm just going to tell you, watching him with my eyes, I'm like, holy this guy is starting to figure it out in a big way. Squeaking in the playoffs at 9-8 out of a bad division, I gotta have to see a little bit more from him personally before elevating him. Okay, yeah, that's what I said. What makes me optimistic is how much better he got as the season progressed. They had a lot of rookies and young players around him. They had a lot of injuries, Aaron Jones, Christian Watson, etc. I think that Jordan Love is going to be tier 1 next year, but I think that tier 2 right now is fine. But I think he should be higher than 14. Okay, so tier 3. Tua at 15, which feels right. This is the Tua tier 3. A quarterback in tier 3 is a legitimate starter, but needs a heavier running game and or defensive component to win. A lower volume drop back passing offense suits him best. Interesting. So just based on that description, do you think that really suits Tua? Or does this description suit Tua better? The tier 2 description. I'm just asking. A tier 2 quarterback can carry his team sometimes, but not consistently. He can handle pure passing situations and doses and or possesses other dimensions that are special enough to elevate him to tier 3. He has a hole or two in his game. Which one do you think better suits Tua? Tier 3 or tier 2? Now, I would say, this might just be a poor description. I would say that the running game in Miami was very good. That's something that you could say. But defense, not really. I do think he's a pretty good drop back passer overall, but it's a very smoke and mirrors offense as well. So it's kind of hard to describe Tua. Tua's stock has improved every year since 2021, putting him on the verge of tier 2. But his tier 3 status is conspicuous. Miami has done an incredible job with Tua, giving him easy throws, giving him easy looks, catch and runs to 4-3 guys, an offensive coach said. If you're sitting there in a pure passing situation, he has to sit there and read stuff and go through his progressions. I don't have a lot of confidence that what's going to look like. So what he's saying is, like, when he's able to see it, rip it, get it out quick, he's excellent. But when he actually has to buy time or actually has to sit there in the pocket and make a throw, he's not as good, which I think is very fair. That is accurate, in my opinion. When he has a pass rush bearing down on him and he has to go 1 to 2 to 3 and 1 or 2 is not open, he does struggle a lot more. Now, he has 24 tier 2 votes, 26 tier 3 votes. So very even. I put him right in the middle of tier 2. A head coach said you have basically got a guy who's perfect for Mike McDaniel. He's going to throw 4,500 yards, a gazillion touchdowns, and statistically it's going to be hard to deny But kind of like Kyle Shanahan quarterbacks, what are you going to do when it's the playoffs against the Chiefs and a 2-minute drive play action is not helping you win? Tua does a great job anticipating, another coach said. I don't see him make it right when it's not right. Purdy does. That is the difference, in my opinion, between Purdy and Tua. Purdy is able to have a few plays a game where it's not right schematically, and he makes it right. Tua also has Tyreek Hill, which is a human glitch. I don't see Tua having the creativity or overall athleticism. I agree with that. I also think Tua's not as tough as Purdy. I think Tua's kind of soft, but very accurate. I think he's more accurate than Purdy. 16, Trevor Lawrence does feel like he's going to be too low. Lawrence fell 7 spots, the biggest drop of any player in 2023. The gap between his salary ranking first and his ranking is the largest in the tier's history. Wow. Okay. And I said it was a bad contract, and Jacksonville fans were not happy about that. Not everyone thinks Lawrence can bridge that gap. It's a problem if ownership thinks you're a 1 or a 1.5, but really you're a 2 in a good year and more like 2.5, really. That's fair. I think he's a 2. I think he is a 2. So he shouldn't be paid like a 1. But that's the way it goes in the NFL sometimes. There's something that Burrow has, that Allen has, that Mahomes has, that borders on cocky that I don't feel Herbert or Lawrence have. It's interesting that you group them with Herbert, but I do kind of agree. They're very robotic. They don't have a lot of personality, a lot of aura. It's aura. That's the word, right? He's mobile, strong-armed, good size, really talented. He has a couple holes in his game. I wonder if it was just one down year. I do like him, and if I had him, I'd be happy with him. Maybe he can trend to tier 2. So 32 tier 3 votes, 18 tier 2s. Interesting. Okay. Kyler Murray at 17 feels fair to me. The general feeling on Murray is that the Cardinals must play a specific way with him, and it remains to be seen whether it's a good thing. I will say Cliff Kingsbury, I don't know if he was good or bad with Kyler, to be honest. Like, yeah, he raised his floor in terms of I feel like he did some fun spread things with him, but honestly, there could be much better systems for Kyler. We could see the best Kyler we've ever seen this year. I wouldn't be that surprised. People would say Kyler's tier 2. How? A head coach placing him in tier 2 said he goes in and beats the Eagles in week 17. This is a guy who once had a team 7-1. He does have limitations and or holes in his game that make it hard for him to put tier 1 ever. Size, middle of the field passing. Murray peaked in tier 2 in 2022, but his stock suffered after the homework clause. His speed and elusiveness are an elite trait, and if you can make him play as a passer, he can't do it. An offensive coach said, I don't think he can see the windows, and I'm not sure he knows what he's looking at. I kind of agree with some of that. If he just grade in flashes, he can make crazy plays and have a game, but I don't think you can consistently win with him. Okay, fair. I do think he's somewhere between tier 2 and tier 3. I think at his best, he's tier 2. At his worst, he's tier 3. I don't think he's ever tier 4, like this says here. Deshaun at 18 is just absolutely ridiculously bogus. There's no way he is a tier 3 quarterback. He is awful. Now, tier 2, 13 votes. Tier 3, 35 votes. Tier 4, 2 votes. This is the 4th consecutive year Watson has fallen in tiers. He's a 3, and it's just a bad fit. You have an RPO quarterback in a play-action offense. Not a good mix. Interesting take. Okay. The offense figures to evolve under Ken Dorsey. He's a better pocket passer that's been given credit for. Not recently. He can't hit water when he falls out of a boat. But he's always been slow through his progressions. That's kind of true because he knew if it broke down, people could not catch him. But now I feel like he's not the same that way. Like athletically, he's not the same. A lot of stuff he did with Houston, there's designed RPOs. Bill O'Brien, shout out. Movement plays for him. Maybe the processing is a tick slow. I can't explain it. It just feels like there's something missing. I wonder if he loves it enough. An offensive coach said he should be way better than this. Yep, he should be. His sack rate is high as well, 9.8%. Terrible. Baker Mayfield, 19. I think that's one of the worst rankings we've seen. Deshaun Watson, bottom 10 quarterback, without a doubt. Baker, I definitely have above him. More moxie. Tougher. Great leader. I like Baker. Only Love and Purdy improved more on the average vote. Baker had a great year. It's hard for me to say he is more of a 3 It's hard for me to say he is more than a 3. But if he does it again, he is there. He needs to show some consistency. I agree. He hasn't been very consistent throughout his career. At his best, you could argue even last year, he was a tier 2 quarterback, right? Mayfield's 10 votes in tier 2 are more than double the number for any quarterback ranked lower, signaling a drop-off with tier 3 behind him. That's where you should have another tier, maybe. 10 tier 2 votes, 39 tier 3 votes. Voters use the word moxie more than when discussing Mayfield than any other quarterback. Nice. Physically not the most imposing, but the guy has moxie. He has football instincts. He has a good feel. I do think he's tough. He can take a hit. The bottom line is he has good production. Some of it is intangible profile, instincts, leadership, moxie, feel. He can make plays alive with his feet, movement skills. I do agree. Like, he's not like the physically most imposing quarterback. He's not very big. He's not very fast. He's not very quick, but he's got a strong arm and he's savvy. He just makes plays. I like Baker. Derek Carr's too high. He sucks. He used to be good, but tier 2, 4 votes. Tier 3, 42 votes. Feels fair. He is tier 3. Number 20 ranking. He's a 3 without John Gruden. Gruden could carry the mantle of all the leadership where Carr could just snuggle up under the umbrella of Gruden. That might be fair. We talk like Baker is some revitalization story, a head coach said. No, Baker has taken 2 teams to division titles. Derek Carr was in that same NFC South division with a better defense. What holds Carr back is a lack of toughness in the pocket and some of his decision-making with the scheme. I agree. He doesn't throw the ball down the field enough. He's terrible in the red zone. I feel like his physical skills have only kind of gotten worse. Geno at 20, very fair. What do they say about Geno here? 4 tier 2 votes, 42 tier 3 votes, 4 tier 4 votes. Smith plateaued this year after surging into tier 3 following his 2022 season. I actually thought he was more of a tier 2 quarterback last year, but I could be wrong about that. He was a consistent player for 2 years in a row as a starter, and he played good ball. I think he'll play better this year than he did last year. I think the offense will be better. They didn't win because of their run game. They didn't win because of their defense. They won because the passing game was consistent. That's true. Like, their defense was terrible last year. Their run game was inconsistent, but they still won 9 games. That is true about Geno. I think Geno's better than people think. There are 2 guys in tier 3 category who can be a little different, defensive coach said. Trevor Lawrence is one, and then Justin Fields can win a game because of his feet. Everybody else, not so much. I don't feel I'm going to lose a game because of Geno Smith. Justin Fields. Russell Wilson at number 22. This is the 4th consecutive year Wilson has fallen in tiers since 2020, where he was a unanimous tier 1 selection. I would not be surprised if he has success with Pittsburgh because of the culture and the system. I kind of agree. To me, he would be a 5 if he wasn't with Tomlin, an offensive coordinator said. Tomlin is a psychologist. He can push the right buttons. However good Russell Wilson can be, Tomlin will figure it out. 3 tier 2 votes, 35 tier 3 votes, 12 tier 4 votes, and 50 tier 1 votes for Mike Tomlin. I didn't think that would go well with Sean Payton. I feel bad for all the scrutiny he has faced, some of which he brings on himself. I just don't think he sees the field well. I see a guy that played a certain way and was able to do it at a high level for a certain period of time. I just don't think he has the athleticism to play that way. I agree, right? He was always that kind of scrambler, do it all, backyard football. And now he's just not the same twitchy athlete. He just doesn't play at that same level. Daniel Jones being at 23, and I'm not going to spend too much time at the bottom of this list, but Daniel Jones 23, that's too high. Daniel Jones is not the 23rd best quarterback in the league. Absolutely not. He has 2 tier 5 votes. He's maybe tier 4. The words Daniel Jones and injury guarantee are going to come up so much this year. I've actually watched a lot of him. I would give him a 3. He's not bad. I don't know how much he's going to run after knee and neck injuries. You go out of the run, or you go out of to the gun range, you shoot a gun. You feel real comfortable hitting the target, a defensive coach said. But when people are shooting back, he is not as accurate. Okay. Justin Fields is terrible. He's not number 24. That's way too high. I think Daniel Jones and Justin Fields are way too high, personally. Gardner Minshew at 25. Honestly, I don't hate it. Anthony Richardson at 26. Potential is there, but uncertain. What do they say about him? Everybody is scared to death of him in the NFL. He's the closest thing to Cam since Cam being a man that big who can run and rip it. Watching this dude in pregame from the 50 just arc it and pace it, I said this guy can be a problem if it comes together because he has the athleticism. You're hard-pressed to tell me if he keeps developing and stays healthy that he's not going to be the bottom of tier 2 next year. Shane Steichen built an offense with some really unique stuff, and we saw glimpses, but Richardson kept getting hurt. I don't know what changes this year. I don't see a path for him having a successful offense with this quarterback without putting him at continued risk for injury. Richardson is erratic in the pocket and all that, but he is big, who can make things happen. A defensive coach. He's a 3 that can elevate for sure. Shane understands how to space things out for him. 10 tier 3 votes, 40 tier 4 votes. Will Levis, also tier 4. Voters see Levis as a strong-armed prospect with questionable instincts. I do think there was a good tape on him last year. He showed confidence. He has a nice energy about him. I agree. He has toughness about him. I agree. He looked like he can be the guy. He can get wound up a little too tight. So I want to see how he handles the stress. It's hard to judge him on last year because their line was so bad. I agree with that. I'll give him a 4, but if I'm being honest, I think next year he's maybe a 3. And that's it. I don't see the upside. He makes some impressive throws. Okay, sounds about right. Bryce Young, 28, feels too high. Sam Darnold, 29. Okay. Jacoby, 30, and that's it. So Jacoby, the worst starter in the NFL, Patriots fans, according to these people. He's a solid 4, great backup buffer guy until you get your starter ready. What was the tier 4 description, by the way? Was there a tier 4 description? Okay. Tier 4 quarterback. A quarterback could be an unproven player, not enough information. Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, or a veteran who would not start all 17 games. So Jones, Fields, Minshew. Bryce might be one of those guys that needs more info. Darnold, Brissett. Okay. So like bridge quarterback territory. Bryce Young. I don't know of a human being that has been put in a worse situation as a quarterback ever. So I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt. 9 voters did place Young in tier 3, but tier 4 proved to be a catch-all category for him most of the time. They threw him to the Wolves. From an intelligence standpoint, from an arm strength standpoint, I think he can do all the things. But I think the size is a major detriment. He still has the escapability. No, he doesn't. But he is a smaller frame guy who struggles in the pocket, and at some point, the guy is going to get hurt. If you give Young a 4, it's partly because that place was so messed up. But I think Frank Reich is a good offensive coach. Is Dave Canales really going to put a revolutionary change on offense? He was good with Baker, I get it, but I wouldn't be surprised if we have a conversation 2 years from now and Bryce Young is a 3. I'd also be not surprised if Bryce Young was out of the NFL. I think that was very positive for Bryce Young right there. Justin Fields doesn't deserve to be on this list. Sam Darnold. He has 12 tier 5 votes. Interesting. Jacoby, 11 tier 5 votes. Bryce didn't have any tier 5 votes. Will Levis didn't. No one else did. Oh, Richardson. Or not Richardson, Jones. All right, well, I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. Interesting, very interesting article. A lot of cool quotes right there. I thought that was really, really cool to read. So you guys let me know your opinion on the Athletic quarterback tiers. Let me know what you thought of the tiers themselves, like the descriptions of them, and also where players ranked. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching. Peace.